This is the I Read Comic Books podcast, the very best podcast for regular comic book fans. I'm your host, Mike Rapin. Joining me this week, two Montagues in a Capulet yelling amongst each other as wanton kaiju-based destruction dashes the city of Verona. This week, I'm joined by Zach McCrary.
Ahoy, hoy.
And Kait Lamphere.
Hello.
And our very special guest for this episode, Adam Tierney.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you all for being here. I'm super excited to talk about comics, if only because I feel like I haven't read that many. But we have a very special guest here, and I'm very excited to talk to him. So, Adam, for the folks at home who don't know you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, what you've been up to?
Yeah, so I am by trade a video game designer director, but I write a lot of video games as well. Most of the stuff I've written professionally is in video games. I worked on games like Silent Hill and Batman and X-Men and Justice League, lots of comic book stuff, and as much as I can possibly do if I can, work my way to those licenses. So I work at Way Forward, and then in addition to that, over the past decade specifically, I've gotten more into publishing stuff. So I started with doing some children's books. My first one was for IDW, as a horror book for little kids called Afraid of Everything, and it was IDW Publishing, the comic book publisher, that was my publisher on that. And then since then I've worked on a few things with them, including I did one issue of the Monsterpiece Theater anthology, Romeo and Juliet and Godzilla, and then just last week we launched the book that I worked on for over 3 years with them, 13 Demons Dead, which is sort of a OEL manga style comedy weird action thing, kind of like Buffy meets Hellblazer sort of a thing, but with a 14-year-old girl as the protagonist.
Yeah, I mean, and we were lucky enough to get a look at both of those books for this episode, but we can't talk about them right now because I have two legally mandated questions that I have to ask, and that is, how have you been? How have comic books been? Let's start with you, Adam.
I've been good. Yeah. So we're doing all of the promotional stuff for my books, and that's fun. And then my day, when I work in video games, I don't direct that much anymore. But what I do at the company is I line up the properties that we go after, which is really fun. And the thing that with video games is it's now really like a licensing world. So almost any IP brand that you want to make a game on, they're all very gettable. So some of the stuff that I'm lining up for the company now is like some of the best games we've ever worked on. And I still occasionally help. I'll sometimes write the scripts or design. So we're working on a lot of fun stuff right now. I'm leaving for Germany in a week for one of the trade shows called Gamescom, which is one of the biggest ones of the year. So that's fun, but very stressful. And then, doing all of the comic marketing stuff on the side and trying to line up some more comic book work in the future, because I love it so much. Even though I am professionally in video games, comics are my one true love.
Man, you sound like the busiest person I've ever talked to on this show.
And I've got 2 teenage kids too.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Spinning so many plates.
Well, I mean, before you tell us about the book that you've been reading or you read recently, I mean, like, how did you get your start in comics? What's your main true passion? You mentioned X-Men, and I immediately had to clock that. But like, was there something that like got you into comics and has continued to, I guess, in comics? Yeah.
So my hometown, I don't remember reading comics when I was a little kid, but I moved to my hometown when I was 6 years old, almost 7. And I remember within like a week going to the comic shop there. And I was really fortunate in that the comic shop in Hemet, California, where I grew up, had a lot of indie stuff. So of course I, read a lot of Spider-Man and Batman and stuff like that. But I was fortunate that shop had stuff like Usagi Yojimbo, which I got in right as that was starting, and still to this day is probably my favorite comic book of all time.
Hell yeah.
And then also stuff like Dark Horse Presents, like the anthology series. Incredible stuff coming out of there. Like later on, that would be stuff like, Sin City and things like that. But I kind of started getting into the indie stuff very early, in addition to a little bit, healthy dose of Marvel and DC as well.
Gotcha. And so that's continued on. So you're still reading Usagi Yojimbo, like all the crazy stuff that Stan has been doing, like all over the place. I feel like, Zach and I just recently reread like a bunch of the Usagi Yojimbo stuff. We talked about it, and like I'm like, that is some of the best comic books you could ever read. But I haven't ventured into the newer stuff. Like, how do you like it? How do you feel like the series has like evolved over the years with him?
It's good. I mean, it's hard to not love the original stuff, like the Albedo and Critters and original series, Fantagraphics, more than the other stuff. But what's so fascinating is, I mean, man, Stan's living the dream. Like, I think he's been doing it for 40 years now. And like, as a creator, as a writer, I've created a lot of characters, mostly in video games, and you love the opportunity to go back and revisit them. One of the few times I got to do that is with our River City Girls series. We've done 4 releases, and it's great to come back and write a character that you already know. Stan's been doing that with Usagi and the crew for 40 years, almost nonstop, between various publishers, between various formats. Sometimes it's color, sometimes it's black and white. I've read it all. I think I did they do these gorgeous like omnibuses called Saga, and I think they've got about like 7 or 8 of them so far. They're really cheap too. You get a hell of a lot of a book for like $25 or something. Go on any place that you order books or talk to your comic shop and get Usagi Yojimbo, any of the sagas. But I reread all of those, I think about 2 years ago, because I probably had missed some of the individual issues along the way, and it's great. It's there's something so incredibly overwhelming and compelling about like seeing a character come back after like being gone for literally like 10-15 years, and he just knows that world so well. And I think one of the other things is, I think Stan is a master of the 22, 23, 24 page comics. So like within every very short, non-large issue, he is giving you the beginning of a mystery. It's almost like a episode, like a procedural, like a cop procedural. He's giving you the beginning of a mystery, some kind of resolution and ending, but then he's also building the narrative of the whole universe continuously. And it's incredible.
Definitely. I mean, this is the push that I need to go and actually read more Usagi, because I've read those original 7 volumes like 4 or 5 times. Now they're just like classics, like you said. But I mean, I've been like very scared to dip my toe into the Dark Horse work. But this is the sell that I need. So thank you.
And I've got my little kind of original art here. You can't see it because of the angle, but this one right here, I got 2 years ago. It's a illustration by Stan of Jay, my favorite character, the evil guy with the blade, and so he's walking in a field. It's a beautiful illustration. Finally got a piece of original Stan Sakai art.
Wow. All right. We can't talk to this guy. He's too cool. I can't do it. That's amazing. Well, tell us about the book that you've been reading. I'm sure it sounds like you've read quite a bit, but what's a book that you've read recently you want to tell us about?
Yeah, I was just at a comic shop yesterday. I did a signing at the really gorgeous, if anybody's in Southern California, I'd never been there before, Pulp Fiction Comics in Culver City. Maybe the best layout I've ever seen in a comic shop, like perfect between back issues and floppies and TPBs and stuff. But after my son was with me, and then after the signing that I did for my book, I wandered around and grabbed some stuff. So I grabbed 2 issues, the one that I have already read, and this has nothing to do with the fact that it's the publisher I work with, but I got IDW's Monsterpiece Theater Presents Roar of the Worlds. So this is the 3rd issue in the run that I did the first issue with Romeo and Juliet, which we're going to talk about. But the reason I got this specifically is it is written and illustrated by Kyle Baker, who is one of my all-time favorite creators. I grew up in the 90s just loving like Cowboy Wally and Why I Hate Saturn and Instant Piano, and guys like Kyle Baker and Evan Dorkin, those kind of like crazy weird indie creators were really what formed me as a comic creator and as a writer. So I was so excited to see that he has a new issue where he's doing everything himself, because he does a lot of just like covers or art for other people, but this is top to bottom writing, art, colors, lettering, everything you see on the page is by Kyle Baker, and it was a fun read. It's basically the War of the Worlds. You got the big creepy tripods, they're ravaging Japan in 1900. A lot of it is shown from the perspective of the humans, almost very similar in a lot of ways to like Godzilla -1. And then halfway through, because some radiation gets dumped in the ocean, Godzilla shows up and just starts beating the crud out of the tripods, and it's gorgeous art. I think it's actually some of the best art that I've seen from Baker in decades. It's really solid, and like every like 2 or 3 pages is like a cover worthy single page spread. It's just like really big shots of just him blasting with his breath, or at one point he's grabbing tripod legs and swinging them like nunchucks. It's completely ridiculous, but it looks great.
I mean, all of these Monsterpiece theaters are full of stuff like that. I'm glad to see that more people are like just doubling down on the absurdity of these stories, because I think that is what's drawing people like myself to them. I'm not a Godzilla comic reader, but every single one of these books I've picked up because I'm like, this is absurd. I need to see what somebody's doing with this.
And shout out to Jake Williams, the editor of the series. I think he's he's like the Kevin Feige behind it all. And I think it's because, I see Godzilla's everywhere, like Godzilla's fighting Marvel, Godzilla's fighting DC, but they're kind of just cookie cutter fights in those other books. With IDW, they have the Monsterpiece Theater. They have now he's like skateboarding. Now he's doing bank heist. Now he's in outer space. It's like they do the weirdest things, and God bless them for it.
Absolutely. I mean, they are really taking the 50th anniversary of Godzilla, I think, is this year. Like, they're taking it so seriously, and I genuinely appreciate it as like just a comic book fan to see that someone's taking a character and like an IP like this and just really pushing it as far as it can go, and not necessarily playing safe. You could say some of this is safe, but I do think that like the wilder it gets, the more interested you're going to get people who would never really check out a Godzilla comic before.
Totally.
I mean, Roar of the Worlds, I saw that cover alone. I mean, Tom Scioli is absolutely killing it on all of these covers, right? But just that alone is like, I gotta see what's inside this book. And that's like what we talk about this all the time on the show, is like, that's half the argument when you walk into a comic book shop is, does this cover want me to pick up the rest of this book? And Scioli is killing it on all of these books.
Yeah, and then he's got another backup in here. It continues the Robin Hood kind of like little mini thing he's doing in all the books. And I should have said right at the forefront, all of this is possible because of Scioli. Like, his Monsterpiece Theater miniseries was so well received. That's why the rest of us, like me and Kyle and some others, got to play in that sandbox, because it was like, wow, it's so popular, we got to anthologize it. I'm sure he's working on like core books as well, but it's so fun to kind of do that crazy mashup that he started with the first series.
Totally. I mean, this is going to be the best collection that IDW sells in the decade, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I can't wait to buy copies of this for every nerd out there that I know that has just a remote interest in Shakespeare or Robin Hood or the Odyssey or whatever, right? Like, everybody gets a copy of this book because it's touching so much. Man, I'm so glad to hear that this one is great. I have not yet read it, so
it's really good. And the art is really tight. I mean, again, not to go too much into it, but a lot of his recent art, Kyle Baker, is very loose, especially if you follow his Patreon. This is the tightest art he's done in a lot. So if you've read any of his stuff like Dick Tracy or The Shadow, or like the early, like, Why I Hate Saturn, Cowboy Wally, it kind of harkens back to that, which I really love.
That's awesome. But okay, we could talk about this all day, but we got to move on. Zach, let's kick over to you. How have you been? How have comic books been? What have you been reading?
I've been good, man. I just had an interesting thing happen to me this morning where I think I said it on the show a week or two ago, but my family is visiting their family back in Vietnam. And today I had to, via video chat, scold my son and force him to go to bed because he would not listen to my wife. So that was a very interesting experience over video, being like, you have to listen to your mother. It's time for you to sleep. So that was interesting. But books have been great, man. I've been reading all kinds of stuff. I'm still going through my reread of all that Daredevil stuff that I talked about like a month or two ago.
Where are you right now in the middle of that?
Crap, where did I leave off? I'm still in the Bendis. I'm still in the Bendis at this point. Where did I start? I can't remember where I started. But yeah, right now I'm in Bendis mode, which is
it's Bendis and Maleev. That's like a killer combo. One of some of the best Daredevil comics you could ever read. I totally.
Yeah. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today. The book that I read for today was one that I was looking forward to, especially since Zach Kaplan was just on the show. And for anyone who wants to go back and listen to that one, I looked it up. It's Hard, Killing People Hard was the name of the episode with Zach Kaplan. But I read The Smart Division, #1 from Dark Horse. Of course, written by Zach Kaplan, art from John J. Pearson, lettering by the one and only Hassan Otsman Alhau. This book, it hits on a lot of levels. First off, I love a good murder mystery, but also it's very timely, discussing AI and the possibilities of using it for good, but also the stark realization that it can be used for evil as well and may someday just go full Ultron on our asses. It centers on 2 FBI agents, and the initial introduction, it doesn't like reinvent the wheel of good story, of good stories like these. One is it's like the straight by the book, straight laced agent, and he's been assigned to try and keep the young, impetuous, and yet brilliant agent in line so she doesn't get herself canned. And then when I say it doesn't reinvent the wheel, please understand that I don't mean that negatively. I love setups like that. It's Odd Couple, it's Mulder and Scully. It's a good move. A major AI engineer has been murdered, and she was in the beginnings of a legal firefight with an AI corporation, attempting to bring to life an AI tool that could help police solve crimes. And what did she create for them? An AI that created crimes to be solved. And I think that's fascinating. That's such a fascinating idea. And this first issue of the Smart Division does a great job of posing some big questions to the reader, both philosophically about this technology and how you feel about it as an individual, but also raises some questions in the mystery being presented. You're left wondering, is someone committing these murders? Because, yeah, the engineer isn't the only one. Is Kaplan trying to say that the AI went rogue and is somehow committing them? Or maybe someone has gotten a hold of the AI and is having it map out the perfect ways to kill each victim. And that's where I'm leaning personally. And that's bonkers fun to me. It's like, hey, Siri, what's the easiest way to chop off a head with an axe? Also, what time do I have to pick up my dry cleaning? I love that. I think that's a lot of fun.
The problem is that Siri wouldn't be able to answer both of those questions in one response. But, that I appreciate the try, Zach.
See, I just get Siri all confused.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Pearson's art in this book. It kind of jumps between media. Like 1 minute, it kind of feels like watercolor. Another kind of like pastels, pencils. It's kind of all over the place. And it's dark and has like a texture to it that lends itself well to the gritty crime story. But I could look at the art like this in any book, because this is my kind of art. Like we were just talking about Alex Maleev. I love Alex Maleev. So I love this kind of dark style. And like, even if there was like a Snorks reboot with this art style, I would love it, and I would read that. And Snorks are basically underwater Smurfs kids, if you don't know what that is.
Thank you.
And I love Otsman Alhau's choice for lettering. Like the narrations are these perfect bubbles, almost like a text message or a response from a chat GPT telling you how smart your idea is. Like, here's some additional resources about how to bake your G.I. Joe themed cake. But the word bubbles for the people are like purposely imperfect. They're kind of all like jagged and kind of squiggly, and the outlines don't line up. And I think that's interesting, and it all feels on purpose, because Otsman Alhau, he's very, very creative with his lettering, which I always appreciate from him. So I feel like this is all on purpose. But yeah, overall, first issue was fantastic for the Smart Division. I highly suggest it. I'm sure it's going to be a quality book through all 5 issues.
Dude, I cannot tell you, like, between this and Department of Truth, like, we're living in like some of the best comic books that are like dark and weird that I can ever think of.
Yeah, and thank you for getting me on that one. That is a great book.
Listen, I mean, Department of Truth is by far my favorite comic book of the last decade, if not more. I mean, I own 3 pages here above me behind, because of that, And this feels like Zach Kaplan is trying to do like a microcosm similar, like they are. This is like the next door neighbor to Department of Truth, and I absolutely love it. I mean, it's so funny that I think Aditya Bidikar is the letterer on Department of Truth, and then we've got Hassan Otsmani Elhau on this book, and it's like these are 2 of the best letterers in the business, basically saying like, I'm gonna do some weird shit, and it's like they're almost competing in like the same genre. It's fantastic. I'm so glad that you read this. I need more people to read this and get into the weird conspiracy of it all. Adam, Kait, I don't know, have you guys checked this book out at all? Did you read this?
No, I'd not even heard of it, but I'm definitely going to check it out now.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Kaplan, fantastic writer. We've had him on the show a couple times. I feel like every single one of his books is just like a slap in the face of like, this is a cool, like a very harsh reality type of book, but like always done with like extreme efficiency. This first issue, if you're not addicted to this first issue, it's like you wouldn't like X-Files. You wouldn't like any real like dark procedural. You wouldn't like the Fringe or something like that. Like all these things kind of tie together. It feels like that kind of story. So if that's your vibe, then you might dig this.
Yeah, Hoopla Digital keeps putting up Zach Kaplan's books one at a time for bonus borrows at the end of every month. So I've read Port of Earth and Eclipse and Kill All Immortals, I think he also did.
Yeah.
So this is probably my next read by Zach Kaplan. Yeah.
Yes. That's cool. I didn't know that Zach had that kind of power with Hoopla.
It's every month he's got something up there.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's move over to you. How have you been? How have comic books been? What have you been reading?
I've been good. I went camping or maybe glamping last weekend up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. when I first did this trip with some friends about a decade ago, we all just had sleeping mats and sleeping bags and tents, and that's it. And this year we had air mattresses and mini fridges and like a den that popped up, like a pop-up den.
Nice.
So just every year we add something, and it's just cozier every time. And I do a lot of reading, so good trip. And most recently I read House of Lowther, Volume 3. If this sounds familiar, it's because Mike and I have talked about this series probably at some length on this show.
Absolutely.
This is by Kaylin Smith, and the entire series is up on Webtoon. If you are interested in the print books, she also has all of the previous volumes up on her website, which is kaylinsmith.net. And I got all of them through her Kickstarters. So Volume 3 is not on the website yet, but it will be in the mail to me soon. I normally wait for the print book to arrive because she does a beautiful job getting these printed. They've got like gold foil covers. It's mostly black and white art, but then she uses color in a really interesting way, which I've mentioned before is a really expensive printing decision, to have most of a book black and white and then still pay for CMYK for color printing. Crazy, but it's used really effectively in the story.
Yes.
Good story beats. So when this landed in my inbox from the Kickstarter, I was like, I'm not going to wait for the print book. I'm going to read this right now.
Right. I mean, especially with the way that Volume 2 left off. I thought Volume 1 had a cliffhanger that I wouldn't be able to wait for. And even though I did, because I was like, I'm not going to read this on Webtoon, I was just refusing. The third one, I'm right there with you, Kate. I think my plan is to read that this weekend.
So in general, if you've listened to this podcast before, you've probably heard the general idea of this series. But in general, this follows Sawyer, who is a woman who takes a job as a maid at the House of Lowther, which is sort of like a boarding house for mysterious residents that she's not supposed to interact with. But in the pattern that Kaylin Smith has put down in most of her books, the woman doesn't listen to rules. It's great. She makes a bunch of friends. She causes some mayhem for the people who are in charge of this like hospital boarding house place.
I mean, Kate, not to interrupt you, but one of the things that I think you can safely say is that the inmates of this place are kind of cryptids.
Yeah,
kind of,
for sure. I think that's on the
kind
cover.
of the,
yeah.
Yeah, it's a big selling point for me. I think cryptids are fun.
Right. And I love this series because Kaylin Smith does a great job at making her characters like sweet and likable and really capable. And then all of like the facial expressions of the characters convey these like complex emotions, like surprise or like sadness, happiness, like multi-tiered emotions, even just in the black and white art before you even see any of the color art. And then the color art is used for these like really emotional like story beats or like to emphasize character arcs. And then Volume 3 continues that pattern really nicely. Like I skimmed the previous two volumes before reading this one because I wanted to make sure that I picked up on any of like the subplots or secondary character arcs, and that was a really good decision. Like once I get this Volume 3 in print, I'm probably going to sit down and read all 3 volumes pretty closely in print.
Nice.
Because they're so beautiful and it's such a good story. I highly recommend this story if you haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah. Is this the end of the series?
It is. This is the last volume.
That's heartbreaking.
I know.
That's heartbreaking.
I know. Like it does end really nicely. And I still want like another epilogue chapter or something. Like she does do a great job. Like you do understand how things end for these characters, end, quote unquote. But I do want more, please.
Yeah. I mean, she's made like some of the most lovable characters I've read in a while, and I understand why this hopefully this did well on Webtoon, but I know the Kickstarters did very, very well, and I understand why. Like, just the first volume, I took a risk, because, Kate, you had turned me on to her work a while ago with some previous stuff, and I was like, yeah, I'll give this person a shot, and every single book of hers that I've read, I've loved more than the last, so, like, I'm very excited to see what she does next, and hopefully next time I meet her at a convention, it won't be the awkward interaction that we had last time, which was so you met my friend Kate, and she told me that I should read this, and it was like that. I was very cool, I promise. Yeah, so I guess let me talk about a book that I read really quick, and because it's been a week, it's been a very busy week. I wrote my weekly IRCB email last night at 11 o'clock. Normally it goes on Fridays at like 4 o'clock that I send out to the rest of the folks on the show, and I wrote a big long overdone piece about how exhaustion has ruined me for the past week because I've been burning the candle at both ends, trying to both stay up late to like read comics and watch TV, not really TV, watch YouTube videos and all sorts of other things, work on this IRCB search website, and also wake up at like 7 a.m. with my 6-month-old daughter and help my wife before she goes to work and everything. And boy, oh boy, did it catch up with me this week. I like went to sleep at almost 10:30, 11 o'clock on Friday, which is insane. Falling asleep in the middle of watching F-Boy Island, New Zealand, which is what I only had time to process in my brain for. So like that's where I've been. Haven't read a lot of comics, but I did sit down yesterday and I started reading, or I should say I finished Crowbound #1. This is a new book coming out from Image in 2 weeks. Thankfully, our good pals over at Image sent a copy of this to us in advance. This is Jeff Lemire, Justin Nguyen with letters and design by Steve Wands. If you've never read a book by this duo, you really should. You should go read Descender. You should go read the vampire book that they did, that's name escapes me. I mean, like anything these two work. Yes, thank you. Anything these two work on is fantastic. Like, and they do super well in a futuristic dystopian hellscape. I cannot express to you how much I love Descender. Such a fantastic, beautiful book, and Nguyen's art just never quits. So Crowbound is 100% their shit because the story is in the future. Everyone works in the bleakness of capital T, the capital F factory under the rule of some larger organization, all to bolster the strength of the Wall, a physical barrier between humanity and, quote, the Eater, which we don't really get an explanation for. It just looks like a big pink blob that seems to be all-consuming. Rose, our main character, sends her daughter off to school one morning, and at the end of the day, her daughter Anna is missing. Is this a common thing? Some say yes. Rose thinks that it's not. The fact that like 12-year-old girls are getting abducted should not be a normal thing, and yet people in this town kind of go, well, sometimes that happens. At face value, this looks like a standard action rom akin to a Liam Neeson's Taken. You know, I've got a very specific set of skills, as Rose has decided she's not going to just let her daughter disappear, but there is most certainly something spoiler specific. I don't want to spoil this for anybody. Reason for me to think that there is quite a bit more under the surface. Maybe it has something to do with this thing called the Eater. Maybe it has something to do with some imagery that we get throughout the book. All I can say is if you're not picking up this #1, you're doing yourself a disservice. You really should snag this or find a way to get a copy of it, because I think this is going to be one of those like next kick-ass books from this duo. Whether this is like 6 issues or 12 or 60, I think you're going to want to read this. The first issue alone like punched me in the head the same way that the beginning of Descender did, and I love that about this. So if you haven't got a chance, check out Crowbound. It's going to be fantastic. I think it's out in 2 weeks. So have you guys read Descender, Ascender, just out of curiosity? Okay,
it's still on my
good
list.
It's very good stuff.
I want to say I read like 2 or 3 volumes of Descender, and then I never made it to Ascender, but I need to like revisit the whole series, the universe.
Yeah, I think it's worth a whole read. I think Descender is the stronger of the two runs, but I think it's very, very good. I mean, a book, Jeff Lemire's books, it doesn't matter what I do, I always end up crying at them at some point, right? Like Sweet Tooth broke my heart. Even Flycatcher, like it was a short series and I was like just devastated by it, right? Or Frogcatcher, excuse me. Yeah, like every single one of his books just hurt me and I keep coming back for more. So yeah, I don't know if that's what you need out of your comics. Go read all this stuff. But let's move on. Let's talk about books that are on the top of our pile, whether they are new or old or just something we're looking to read off of our shelves. We've got some folks hanging out with us on Discord today. Their picks are CK is going to be reading The Power Fantasy Volume 3, that Kieran Gillen book, which is just stupendous. I don't even know where that series is going, but CK, I hope you have a good time with that. Paul G is going to be reading Woman, Life, Freedom by Marjane Satrapi, excuse me. But let me kick things back over to someone else on the show. Let's see, Zach, what is on the top of your pile this week?
So the next thing I'm going to check out is Whatever Happened to the Crimson Justice, numbers 1 through 5, Mad Cave Studios, written by Frank Thierry, art by Inaki Miranda, colors by Eva de la Cruz, letters by Dave Sharp. I mean, I was pulled in because of the duo of Thierry and Miranda, Eisner-nominated team, worked on Godzilla, Here There Be Dragons, Catwoman, Harley Quinn. Here's the synopsis. So This is from Mad Cave. There was a time that when the red alerts shone in the sky, Empire City's greatest hero, the Crimson Justice, would answer the call. But now it's been years, and neither he nor his sidekick Reddy, nor their psychotic archfoe Dr. Mayhem have been seen since the great Empire City hospital fire decades ago. What happened that fateful night? Did they all die? But if that's the case, who or what is this Dr. Mayhem who's reappeared in the modern day, brutally murdering Commissioner Thomas Kent and challenging the Justice to return? Is that possible? Does the Crimson Justice still live? And if so, what could have made him disappear and abandon his crimson hood in the first place? So again, I love a good mystery, and we're scratching that itch in a superhero story, which is always fun. I love genre bending. Mad Cave, I've been singing the praises of for like the last year or two. Everything I read from them is interesting and innovative, and so I'm 100% on board for this book. Whatever happened to the Crimson Justice, it should be fun. I looked at the art. I really like the art in this book too.
Yeah, it looks like a gorgeous book. I feel like my brain turned off halfway through you reading that, and I just heard general like superhero just lingo like over and over and over. I was like, is this a Batman book? Did I just is this like it reminds me of that it reminds me of the Sleeper. Did you ever read Sleeper? I don't know if that was really Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips book that came out. Yes. Like it's one of these kind of murder mysteries, whodunit, or the Top 10 series that Alan Moore did with Gene Ha, like where you're like things are so close to like superheroes that we know, but it's not. Or even the Jeff Lemire series that he did, Black Hammer, right? Where like things are very close. Let us know how this is, because I'm hearing like Thomas Kent, Empire City, Night, Darkness, Mayhem. Like, is this a Batman book? Just let us know.
I feel like nowadays, if you're gonna do something superhero-y, it's really hard to come up with something new, and it's way easier to just play into the strengths of superheroes and just roll with the tropes. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I expect here. I expect there to be something that makes this their own book and makes this their own story, but at the same time, it'll still hit the beats that we expect from something superhero-y.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Let us know, man. I mean, you're the guy that I go to say, is this Mad Cave book worth me picking up? So let me know. Adam, what is on the top of your pile this week? What are you reading next?
My pile is terrible. It's probably like 1,000 issues deep. But the other book that I did pick up this yesterday, but that I haven't read yet, that I'm excited to, is I got the first issue of Grendel, Devil's Crucible, Sedition by Matt Wagner. Again, talking about artists that really inspired me growing up. I was a huge Matt Wagner fan, and kind of similar to Stan Sakai. He's been cranking out that universe for 40-ish years. And it looks great. Like he changes his style over the years, and I like some periods more than others. But as I was flipping through this one in the shop, it looked really interesting. I guess it's a continuation of the previous Devil's Crucible miniseries from a couple of years ago. I think it was like 2024. But this one deals with female protagonist, clone of Christine Spar, and so I'm curious to see where that goes. I really loved the beginning of the full series with the I forget the artist. What was their name? It was a pair of brothers that did that, like the main series of Grendel, but that starred Christine Spar. She was the second Grendel, so this is now kind of going back, hearkening to that character. So I'm really interested to see where that goes. And it's great. I mean, I love creators that are just churning away at their original creation. 30, 40 years later, Matt Wagner is still obviously just loving everything he's doing. I love that series in particular. The Grendel series also just keeps jumping forward in time to like ridiculous measure. It basically started with kind of an evil Bruce Wayne type character in modern day, and then over the course of the books got very sci-fi and very futuristic, is where this one is set as well. So I'm excited to dive into this one. And it's also cool, speaking as a father of some very cool teenage creatives. My daughter is 13, my son is 16. I love the fact that he is now doing these books with his son. So Matt Wagner is doing all the writing the line work, and then Brennan Wagner, his son, is doing the coloring. And I have to imagine that's got to be like the best job on earth, to just be cranking out new issues with your son. And the coloring looks great. I mean, his son's doing a fantastic job too.
Yeah. I mean, that's like Jacob Phillips coloring Sean Phillips's work on some of the more recent like criminal stuff. It's just like, that's really cool. The thing about this Grendel. Okay, so I've seen Grendel since I've been reading comic books, and I only started reading, like 20 years ago. But still, like I didn't read as a young kid. I feel like Grendel has just been a staple I've always seen. It's like, oh, if you're gonna read Dark Horse books, there's like Hellboy, and there's this or the Goon, and then there's Grendel. And I never ever got into Grendel. I don't know why. Like it's just something I never picked up. Would you recommend going back and read those? Have you read a bunch of Grendel in the past?
Yeah, so I mean, it's very accessible because they started doing omnibuses, and they're by character. So the original Grendel is just this super mastermind, again, kind of just like an evil version of like a Bruce Wayne, named Hunter Rose. And it's about him, it's named Grendel, just like the original myth, because it's sort of got these homage to these characters from the original Grendel myth. And he fights this Wolfman character named Argent that works with the cops, and it's basically the original one was called Devil by the Deed. It's a one very small issue, single issue that kind of goes over the entirety of those characters. But if you get the omnibus, it's really cool because it has that issue, and then it has a lot of places now, DC, Marvel, everybody's doing like the black, white, and red or black, white, and gold, like anthology type books. So he did some with Hunter Rose that expanded on that, and that fills out the majority of the first omnibus. So anybody who's curious about Grendel, I definitely would recommend get Omnibus 1. It's all the Hunter Rose stuff. And then from there, every new omnibus is a new character because it kind of jumps forward different generations. People take on the mask, people take on the persona, and that's where it gets like very futuristic and very sci-fi. But yeah, it's really good stuff. And especially, man, the early like 80s and 90s Matt Wagner art during the time of the original Devil by the Deed. Also the crossover with Batman from that time, gorgeous art, just stunning art. Definitely recommend people check that out if they're ever curious about the character.
Okay. I appreciate that. Like, I think that was the thing. It's like some of these characters, I don't know where to start, but like if Dark Horse, I feel like on the whole actually does a really good job with their omnibuses, right? Like I recently told myself, I think it was last year, I was like, I'm going to get caught up with Hellboy. I'm going to read Hellboy to know the main Hellboy story. I just grabbed those omnibuses. That was all that I needed, and that was so cool to just be like, they've contained these into 4 digital tomes. That's how I read it. And that I just been sitting on from Humble Bundles. I was like, and I have everything that I need. And now I feel like I know Hellboy way more than I did before. So yeah, maybe
the omnibuses are really almost kind of critical for a lot of these, because with like Grendel and Hellboy in particular, a lot of like the critical story moments are not from series. It'll be in like
Dark Horse Presents,
or like Dark Horse Presents, or like I won't spoil, but the best Hellboy, my favorite is Hellboy in Hell. It was like when the kind of the final series, and the entire like hook of that is based on this minor tiny little story he did called The Magician and the Snake that wasn't even in a Hellboy book. It was like in some obscure like Dark Horse anthology little hardcover on like short stories. Oh no, it was called Happy Endings. It was like a super weird little mini thing, and you would never read that other than they're smart enough to fold all those into the omnibuses. So the omnibuses, especially with a lot of that Dark Horse stuff, is kind of the better way to read, even rather than just getting all the individual issues.
Totally. I mean, I would commend somebody if they owned all of the issues that had all these Hellboy stories, because that was the thing that I found so funny about reading those. And I'm sure this is the same for Grendel, where like at some point before each issue, like, this was originally collected in Dark Horse Presents Anthologies for the Summer, number 47 in the back. And it's like, what? Like, how would you know? And it's like, this is the beginning of the major storyline for this Hellboy arc. And I'm like, what is happening? And it's nice to get like little notes from the author. So, okay, you've sold me again. I can't believe you've done this to me. You've put 2 books on my radar that it's
the omnibus
huge endeavors.
Grendel Omnibus 1 is a good starting point for sure.
Awesome. Let me talk about a book that is on the top of my pile this week. I'm digging into the Kickstarter backlog that I've got of books that I've been meaning to read. I did just finally get the digital files for this like 2 weeks ago, so it's not like I'm digging too deep. But this is Space Riders Volume 3, writing by Carlos Giffoni, art by Alexis Surratt, letters by Ryan Ferrier, and this is a Black Mask book in the year 2026. It's crazy. for those of you that aren't familiar with the Space Rider series, the original pitch is from the galactic core to the outer quadrants, one name strikes terror in the heart of evil beings everywhere. The Space Riders. Sailing the cosmos in the skull ship Santa Muerte, Captain Peligro and his fearless crew deal harsh justice to the scum of the galaxy while searching for the hidden truths of the universe. It's the coolest pitch you could ever have for a comic book, and it turns out this book is the coolest book that you've ever seen in your life, because Alexis Zaret's art is neon psychedelic insanity, and I love it. I genuinely don't even care what volume 3 is about, as long as I get that sweet psychedelic art in my eyeballs directly from a digital screen. I think I've got a physical copy of this coming in the mail at some point in the future, but like, I'm going to read this on my iPad. It's going to be amazing. I've been following this series since it kicked off in April of 2015, because they just took forever to get volume 1 out, and then volume 2 came out, and then I think it's been like 6 years or something since the last volume of the series came out, and they're finally putting it out. I mean, Zaret's been working on a bunch of other stuff. I think he worked on Night Riders with Dave Baker, as well as a couple other things. He did a whole Magic card series, which is fantastic. I've been trying to collect all of those, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to read this. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be insane. I probably will actually reread the entire run. They're only like 4 issues per volume, so it's not a lot to read, and they look fantastic. I mean, one of the main characters is like a baboon who has like all of the mind of a human. It's so fun. The universe, I guess the thing that really draws me to Zaret's art is like, it is like a psychedelic trip. It's bright neon colors all over the place, but he draws the universe like it's an exciting place. Like it's something that you want to travel through. Like there's horrors and excitement around every corner. And I love just the action-packed slapdashery of everything. Like these books move at a million miles per hour. Everything happens so fast, and it's just a wild ride to get on. I remember first reading through the first volume, and I just flew through it. Like you read it so fast, like you don't realize that you're coming to the end until it's finally done. And everything escalates. It's like you're on a roller coaster, but you never actually drop. It's just always going up. So if you're in for something crazy like that, I'm sure that these are available somewhere on like Hoopla, or you can borrow it somewhere. You can get it really cheap on anywhere that you can buy comics. But yeah, I love Space Riders, and I'm very excited to read volume 3. I know I've talked about this on the show before.
Looks totally wild.
I know, right? I was going to say, if you guys haven't looked it up, look up Zaret's art right now. He's such a fantastic illustrator.
Looks like a blacklight poster.
Yeah, I love the colors, but the line art kind of reminds me a little bit. We talked earlier about Tom Scioli, kind of that like almost 60s, 70s ish, very indie kind of like rough style. I love it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I would say like it's definitely a comic book art style that I think can be divisive. I happen to find it to be just gorgeous. I love the roughness of it. I love the boldness of all the line work that he does. Like there is not a thin line on any of his pages. And there isn't a muted color either, and that is so cool to me.
The inking reminds me almost a little bit of like Paul Pope style.
Oh sure, yeah, I could see that. But yeah, all right, Kait, tell us about what's on the top of your pile so we can get to asking Adam some questions about his very cool comic books that he's written rather than what everybody else has been working on.
Yeah. I read an anthology comic book called Other Ever Afters and New Queer Fairy Tales. This is by Melanie Gilman. And this uses like the familiar ideas behind fairy tales, like the monster in the woods or like a royal engagement or something like that. And it gives them endings that you wouldn't expect in a fairy tale. You know, there's no like royal wedding or anything at the end of any of these. And from looking through this and looking at the cover, I'm seeing like a strong nature theme in the book, like satyrs or like the story of the Goose Girl, fairies. There's a whole story called The King's Forest and another one called The People's Forest, and they kind of like bookend the whole collection. So that's really interesting. I'll be interested to see how like they are different or similar. The art is all colored pencils, which looks really nice flipping through it, but also like there's only a couple of panels on every page. So even though this is like a little bit long it's like an OGN, looks like a whole novel. I don't think this is going to take very long to read. Maybe like 3 or 4 panels per page. A couple of years ago, I read an anthology called Heartwood, Non-Binary Tales of Sylvan Fantasy, and I really liked that collection, that anthology, and like the combination of like the queer romance stories or possibly romance stories, and then the nature. And then the like, I don't know, something about the art also kind of reminds me of that collection. So I'm hoping that Other Ever Afters is going to be something that I'm like talking about for years, like Heartwood is. I'm still recommending that one today. So
nice.
Yeah, this looks right up my alley.
Oh, very pretty cover. I know Melanie Gilman's work from their book that they did called As the Crow Flies, which is a book that I've had a tumultuous relationship with, and I read it when I was 25, I didn't like it, and then I read it when I was 27, I really liked it, and then I read it when I was 29, I didn't like it, and then I read it when I was like 31, and I liked it again. So you have to let me know how you feel about this. This sounds really nice, actually. I'm not trying to like cast any bad judgments or anything like that, because As the Crow Flies is such a different book, and it's about kids that go to a camp and blah blah blah. But so let us know. Fairy tales are always fun, right, Kate?
Right. Yeah. I do really like fairy tale retellings for the most part. I do kind of feel like I've read so many at this point that I'm like, it's like this, or it's like this other thing, like Fables, or like the Once Upon a Time TV series, but really like this is just a whole genre. I don't need to make these these connections to like every other fairy tale retelling. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, cool. I mean, let's move on to wrap up the show here. Adam, we do have some questions for you, because obviously you worked on some really cool books. And 13 Demons Dead, we took a look at that. You also worked on this Romeo and Juliet and Godzilla. If folks haven't been able to get a copy of these books, you should just go to your comic book shop and find them, or buy them online. They're both really fantastic books. I am curious. We kind of talked about like your history with comics, but like, where did you find yourself? I guess you said you started with like old stuff with Usagi Yojimbo, but where do you find yourself gravitating towards now, as an older person who's read, it sounds like, a lot of comic books? What draws you in? What gets you interested in like a new comic book? Is it just there's got to be a Godzilla on the cover, or Usagi Yojimbo's in it, or is it something else?
Oh no, I'll pick up anything. I mean, I'll just roam the shelves. Like I said, I was raised on indie comics, so I'll pick up stuff that I have no idea who the creators are, no idea who the characters are, if it looks really cool to me, and then sometimes that ends up being the comics that are my favorite of all time. So yeah, just I kind of just roam around the comic shops whenever I visit, and just look at all the shelves. And then same thing with I'll pick up I don't read as much superhero stuff nowadays, but I will if the art style is really interesting or it's very wild. Like anytime Daniel Warren Johnson touches anything, it's immediately just jumps off the page. Right. So I'll get anything by him, even when it's mainstream Marvel and DC stuff. But usually just I don't have anything on my pull list. I just go like at least once a week and just kind of like look around and see what's interesting and just grab singles off the shelves.
Nice. Any recent standouts? I mean, I know you just talked about a couple books, but anything recent that you grabbed that you think was like, I didn't know what this was, and I decided to grab it off the shelf, and you liked it? Yeah,
I mean, I just mentioned Johnson. I got the first issue of Do a Power Bomb, and I thought it was just absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it's just the energy that he brings to his books. And then very recently, my son had the TPB that he had done of Beta Ray Bill. And I love the hell out of that. It was like, I've never known that much about a character. I'm like, all right, he's like kind of a robot horse alien guy. And he
something.
Just because seems like kind of a tough guy. But the pathos and the emotion and the characterization in there, you feel so much for that character, in addition to just there being incredible action sequences and stuff. So yeah, I think coming, I think it was at Comic-Con. Was it Comic-Con or shortly after Comic-Con? I grabbed Do a Power Bomb, but that was one of the last ones I grabbed.
Nice, very nice. Well, yeah, I mean, so you've worked in video games then, and Zach and Kate, please just jump in. Don't let me just talk this whole time. But you've worked in video games for a while. You said you made the transition over to comics just like because you've been a big fan. What's the writing like for going from video games to comics? Right. Is it easier in comics? Is it harder in comics? I guess how do you feel about that? I mean, because you're working with artists in video games, but working with an artist in a comic book, I know, is a whole different thing. So like, how did that transition work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy both. I think most of the scripts I've done, because they're for video games, end up being dialogue and usually end up being VO dialogue. So, most of the games we're writing scripts And the structurally it's the same. You start with the outlines, then you start with like the beats, and you start with all of that stuff, and then you eventually get to the dialogue. But the end result for video games tends to be we cast the voice actors and then hop in the studio and get them to record it, and then we're sprinkling those little VO wave files throughout the game. With comic books, I'm still focusing mostly on dialogue just because that's kind of my forte as a writer. But you have to think about the page, and you have to think also about you're not hearing it audibly. So when you're listening to somebody do an audio version in a comic, in a video game or an animation or something like that, you can basically just kind of like have them talk for as long as you want, as long as it's interesting, and it's fine. With a comic book, it's all about the real estate and it's about the space. And so I definitely had to force myself to minimize that as much as possible, get down to like the moments and the dialogue and the panels that really were worth their space. And that was really challenging, especially when I did the Romeo and Juliet and Godzilla book, because we're retelling this play that I love, but it was only 35 pages, and getting that into 35 pages plus having good, big spreads and page turns and stuff like that was a real challenge. Less so in the 13 Demons Dead. That's 250 pages, so we had lots of breathing room on that one. But I think that's my favorite thing about working on comics is the page turn. The fact that at least when you're reading comics as a physical medium, you turn the page, you get a glimpse of everything that's going to happen for the next like 2 minutes or so, and putting those little cliffhangers on the page turn so that when they turn it, it just shocks them with what happens, something that's either a great piece of art or a twist they didn't see coming. That's something I really, really love, that there's no equivalent of that in video games, and definitely something we leaned a lot into in 13 Demons Dead. There's a lot of those page turn reveals.
Yeah, actually, I really enjoyed 13 Demons Dead. And I had some questions about that I want to ask you, because I'm very curious, like, where did the idea for that come from for you? And like, are there any specific inspirations you can think of, or was it just kind of the muses working through you? How did that
it was just so it was interesting because most of the stuff I've done in the comic and book space has been kind of assignment. So it's like I did the Godzilla one, which was, hey, let's do this and let's do Romeo and Juliet. And then I did a tie-in to an Atari game called Yars Rising. That was the game that my studio worked on, but I got to write the comic book again for IDW. So those were all based on like existing IPs. With 13 Demons Dead, it was just from scratch. It's like, hey, here's my idea. Can we make this, get greenlit and make it happen? And so it is just a hodgepodge of everything I love. So I love horror. Anything that I do that I get to come up with it's going to be horror automatically. I love teenagers. I love teenage dynamic. I love, following a teenager, balancing something incredible or supernatural, and then also have to worry about homework and always have to worry about, a bratty sibling and stuff like that, and worry about bullies at school. So it's really just all kind of that stuff. And, I think the heart of it, I also love episodic stuff. I love like Monster of the Week, Demon of the Week, stuff like that. So the book is 12 chapters, and each chapter it kind of advances Ev Espada. She's the main character, 14-year-old girl from Southern California. It advances her story, but then there's some big monster encounter or some big battle or some big climactic moment every 20 pages. And it's essentially just like, I always describe it as like, it's Hellblazer if you replace a crotchety old 40-year-old man with a very shy 14-year-old girl, and that's kind of the gist of it. But really, it was really fun to work on, and really the contents of it was no more thought put into it other than like, let me just cram everything that I love writing, and then also talking to my artist Saspi, and what do you want to draw, and then just cramming all that in the book as well.
And with it being broken into chapters the way it is very, you're right. Like I totally see the love of like the Monster of the Week kind of procedural, and that's pretty cool. Was it always intended to be an OGN, or was that something, like, did you ever think about making it like a single issue floppy book, or, how did you make the decision to go original graphic novel?
No, that's actually a great question. And it's because we got it greenlit. Initially, when we were talking to IDW, it was going to be 12 floppies. It was going to be like the first year of an ongoing series. And that's why it's not a big spoiler, but there's kind of a time jump, roughly 1 month with each issue, because we wanted it to happen in sort of real time. We want to have Ev grow up, but it's also with the demons. So I'll give the elevator pitch really quick. Basically, there's a 14-year-old girl going to Catholic high school, and she gets caught in this supernatural kind of agreement between God and the devil. There are these 13 demons that are particularly jerks and just ruining everything on earth, and that even, the devil can't control them, God can't control them. And so the way they resolved it is like, well, let's put one warrior for the past 2,000 years into it and just have them fight them, and that'll distract these demons. And normally it's always been like these super devout kind of like elder religious figures, but by happenstance in the first chapter, Eva spotted this very shy 14-year-old high school girl, accidentally kills a demon. Now she is the new demon killer. They're all coming after her, and she's the only one that can see them. But with the demons, once you kill them, they will come back exactly 12 months later, if not all of them are dead. And so in 2,000 years, nobody's been able to vanquish all of them at one time. They just keep popping up like very, very slow whack-a-moles. And that is what she gets herself into. So that's the title. There's 13 of them. If she can vanquish all of them, so they're all dead within the same time period, then the curse is over, and everything, you get to see where it goes from there. But that's the gist of it. And sorry, to get back to your original question, we pitched it as individual issues, and then our publisher IDW said, looking at Sosby's art and looking at the writing and stuff, this feels more manga style. Totally. And so we think this would resonate more as a full volume. So we switched over to there, and I'm really happy that we do, because you look at a lot of independent from scratch series, even when they might have the book done to issue 12, if it's not selling, issue 4 comes out, it gets the axe and nothing else comes out. So I feel really fortunate that we actually do get to launch with 12 chapters and over 250 pages of art and story for everybody to read.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because sometimes it takes a couple issue for a comic to get its footing and to get off the ground, and sometimes it gets canceled before it gets a chance to. Right, so exactly. That's a good point. So with you talking about Sosby, I love Sosby's art in this book. Was it always kind of your vision to have that kind of manga influence?
Sort of. So it's interesting. I co-created this brand with a different artist named Rem, and Rem is, if anybody has ever played any of the River City Girls games, she's the artist of those. And this is actually the original version of the first illustration by Rem. I'm holding up to the camera if anyone's watching this. Of Eva Spada. So she created the characters, but I was just getting into comics. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I said, hey, here's my idea, and here's the characters. And, Rem came up with the characters and stuff, and they said, oh, that's great. Like, yeah, let's do this. And when can she start? And I said, oh, no, she can't work on it. She's too busy. And they're like, well, we're not going to greenlight a series that we don't know who the artist is. So then we had to scramble and find a new artist because Rem was too busy with her own series, Devil's Candy. I know. And it was like right at the edge. It was like, oh man, they want to do it. And it's like, well, now they don't want to do it because I'm not actually telling them what it is. So we looked around. It took a while, like probably about half a year of me and my editor at the time, David Marriott, and Rem kind of looking at different artists. And Sosby, who is an Italian artist and had done some indie stuff and also some like mainstream kid stuff like Rugrats and things like that. She has a really interesting style because I think whereas like Rem, who lives in Texas, is sort of like Japanese American hybrid style, Sosby is very clearly like Japanese influence and Euro style. So it has like one foot in kind of a Euro rendering and Euro character design, but it's still very manga flavored.
Yeah.
And so once I was interested in her doing it, she was interested, and then we kind of went back and forth, and ultimately what we did to make it happen is I just said, hey, let's just do a sample story because we want to just show IDW exactly what they're getting. And we did a 10-page story that's not in the book's main pages. There's some in the back behind the scenes section, and it's just like one demon encounter. And they said, all right, now we get it. This makes sense to us. And then we were off to the races to do the full thing. But yeah, I love the hell out of her art. And I think also if you look at everything she had done up to that point, it's very good. And then somehow she leveled up like 20 times over the course of 13 Demons Dead. I think she just got so much better on it. Two of the interesting things. One, it was brought up earlier. I think Kait brought it up, is it is all black and white, but we do have a tiny bit of color in there. So I won't spoil it because there is a little bit of that in there, but it is a black and white book, but we do introduce color at a key moment toward the end of it. And then the other thing that's really fascinating, I've never worked with anybody who did this. Sosby does not use flat gray tones. Everything is dot. I forget the term, but
gradient.
Yeah, well, like the little like different size dots that so at
like
the
stipple
heart
work,
yeah. So it's basically,
yeah.
but it's like dot patterns, and so 100% of the book, other than those color sequences, are black and white. There's no actual gray. It's just that the dots are in that kind of pop art thing, spaced differently so that it creates the illusion of gray. But if you look, if you hold it up super close, it is all dot work, and it's so meticulously done.
That's an intense amount of like focus and detail.
It is, yeah.
Oh my god! I mean, a cousin of mine does a lot of that work. Like that's his like one of his big focuses. He's told me a couple times about how like that is like the time consuming thing. It's not getting the pages out. It's not getting anything else drawn. It's like just the dot work. That's
It's deciding on the tones, deciding on the patterns and stuff, because the or duotone, that's what it's called, duotone. But what's interesting is I was asking her, like, why do you bother doing this? Because it'd be so easy to just lay in grays, and it does create a sharpness that you don't get with just like flat like Photoshop grays. For I don't know, I guess that's kind of the intent, but having the individual black dots that you're zooming your face out from the page and you're seeing it as gray, but it's not gray, it does create a stronger sharpness, I think.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's like an optical illusion, right? Like that's very, very cool. I just assumed that was like a pattern when I saw it in the book. So wow, that's really cool. Kait, do you want to jump in here? I realize Zach and I have just been talking.
Yeah, I had a question. I really liked the relationship between your main character and her little sister. I found it very true to what having a younger sibling is like. It's just like it's a little bit too mean at times, but I was like, no, that's correct.
Right.
So I wondered if you have a younger sibling or if this is all based on like the relationship between your kids.
Yeah, I think it was mostly that. I have a younger sibling, but we're both boys. But my kids are a 16-year-old boy and 13-year-old girl, and I see the squabbling of them, especially when they were younger. So yeah, very much based on that. And I think just with with Issa as her little sister, and she's not, she's precocious, but she's not terrible. Like you said, if anything, Ev is kind of maybe a little bit too mean-spirited towards her at times. But the way I wrote the dialogue, I wanted everything to feel very genuine. I didn't want any of it to feel generic. So the way that Ev interacts with her sister, the way that Ev interacts with her friends and her parents and her teachers and stuff, I wanted that to all feel genuine, even if it's awkward or even if it's weird or even if it's a little shocking. Just because I think, like, especially if this is kind of one foot in kind of like the YA, it's sort of YA, but then there's kind of parts where it's a little bit more PG-13-ish, but I didn't want it to feel like generic where the characters were untrue. So like, not too much of a spoiler, but like the first night Ev is at the school right before her first demon encounter, there's this moment where she's just kind of feeling bored and frustrated, and there's these like building materials, these sheets of glass, and nobody's around, and so she just starts destroying them. And it's like something that a like proper protagonist in like a nice little YA book would not do. It's like, oh, that's illegal and that's terrible, and why is she doing this? Is she a psychopath or whatever? But it's like, no, that's what a kid might do if they're just kind of a little bit self-absorbed and a little bit bored and nobody's around. So I really wanted her to feel like a flawed but growing, kind of legitimate character, and tried to stay as truthful to her as possible throughout the book, including kind of being a little mean to her sister at times.
Yeah, there was a moment where she was like in the middle of figuring out what's going on and like the supernatural aspect of the story, and she still like encounters her sister in the hallway or something and just like goes right back into like sibling mode. Like, I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that all of the relationships are really well thought, like really well put together. I think you did a great job with that whole family. Like, you really understand their dynamic as a family, even when you get to the quinceañera and you meet like the cousin, and it's all very well done, and you understand these people and how their relationships work. I thought that was really great.
Thank you. Yeah. I tried really hard, and also I wanted to have a book where the character has a very strong cultural background and cultural ties, and so that's why her family's Mexican American, and it's, you know, she and her sister speak little bits and pieces of Spanish. Her mom speaks mostly Spanish. Her dad speaks less, just like any kind of typical family that would have come over. And I worked really hard at that. I mean, I know a little bit of Spanish, but then I worked with, you know, some friends as far as like editing it and making sure that, okay, does this feel true to a SoCal girl who is a Mexican American who came over here and was born here, but her parents are not and stuff. I really wanted to make that as true as possible, just because I think, you know, the generic, just kind of like white kid with no background, or not even white, just like nondescript character with no background is boring. So I wanted to kind of, you know, have something to anchor her a little bit more as an actual believable character.
Yeah. I mean, you could have just written another Buffy, you know, that would have been fine.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm curious though, and I think we'll probably wrap after this, is I'm curious about like the religious iconography. Obviously, like we're dealing with God and devil and all that stuff, but I feel like this is very like pointed in a lot of religious things. I guess was that intentional, or were you just trying to like say like this is a really easy foundation for me to start things and then tell a story around demons, or do you just have something out for Catholics? That's what I'm wondering.
No, and I'm not Catholic. I've always been Christian of some, you know, just kind of non-denominational. I think I grew up Lutheran, but I think I just sort of backed into it. So it's like, okay, I want to do demons, because again, it's just, I want to do my version of a Hellblazer. And so, you know, and my favorite thing about Hellblazer with John Constantine was he's fighting the demons, but then in between fighting them, they would just like chat. So it's like he could stab a demon, but then the demon could say like, hey John, what you been up to recently? Like I love that kind of casual aspect on top of the really crazy action. So I wanted to do that with her. And I think it was just kind of creating the character. It's like, okay, she's a Mexican American. She's in Southern California. She goes to a Catholic high school. That all makes sense. Because I had set that as I went forward, I just thought, okay, well, I've got this plot point coming up. Might as well investigate this a little bit further. Might as well investigate. And there's a lot there. So like when her friend Jeannie is kind of doing research on the demons, and it's like, well, this isn't in, you know, the King James Bible, but look, there's these like ancillary books and it kind of mentions other demons and stuff. I had no idea about that when I was plotting the book, but it was just as I was researching, it's like, oh, there's actually something here. So hopefully people are not, you know, offended if I got something slightly wrong. I've actually had most of the alternative, the people that have read it who are Catholic are saying, oh, I love this. This is like Catholic demon fan service, you know, kind of fan fiction type stuff. And but it just sort of just through research kind of backed into it. And hopefully I got enough of it right. But it's all in service of the characters, all in service of the plot.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the thing that I found really interesting, is when they're doing research and they're like, oh no, there's all these extra books. And I was like, now this is where things get interesting, because I feel like that's where you're, you know, the bit of there being just a lot of extra demons and stuff, and not to reveal too much about the story, but like I think that is like very close to like cracking open a can of like there's way more to this story that we could potentially explore. I like the focus on 13. I mean, like it's nice to get a good round number in a book like this, and I feel like timing it with, you know, months of the year. I mean, like you just knocked off a lot of things that I think can make a really solid book to come together with just all the things that I don't know. It feels like everything clicks, right? There's no extra anything, you know, because I feel like some stories like this, even if you say, oh, there's 13 or something, you'll try to cram it into 6 issues, but making this a longer book really makes things work. So what I'm trying to say is, Adam, you made a fantastic comment to SASB. You guys did a great job with this one. We're really excited that we were able to read it in advance. And for folks out there who haven't bought it, go out and find a copy of 13 Demons Dead. It's a fantastic looking book. As you can see, if you're watching this on Patreon, or if we clip this, it's a real big, thick book. It's beautiful on the inside. I can't wait to get a physical copy myself, because I think this is just a fun one to have on the shelf. But anyway, to wrap things up here, then I guess, Adam, where can people find you on the internet if they want to find you? They want to ask you questions. If they have questions about other demons that you didn't mention in this book, what would be the easiest way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty shy, but I'm on most of the mediums, especially promoting the book. So it's just Adam Writes Stuff everywhere. Adam, WRITE, and then stuff. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, although that's more like video game networking. But yeah, anywhere, especially Instagram. If you go on Instagram, that's a really good one because Sosby's on there. So she's posting a lot of her incredible art. IDW's on there. They're posting a lot of their stuff. We've got trailers for the book and everything. But yeah, check it out. If you like horror and you like teenage, relationships and family dynamics and fighting demons and bullies and stuff, then you might dig it.
I guess last thing, do you have any other video games that you want to promote? I guess before we leave, and maybe I'm sure our crowd overlaps, and it's probably a perfect circle.
What have we done recently? So like the ones we've released most recently are Shantae, the latest Shantae, which is a GBA game, Game Boy Advance, and then we also got the rights back to Sigma Star Saga. That's another GBA game from 20 years ago. Aside from that, Way Forward, our studio, we released about a year ago. We did a game based on Halloween, the horror movie, and also Evil Dead, and so both of those are really cool. And very bloody. Those were good. And then, if you go to wayforward.com, you see all the stuff we've done. River City Girls is kind of my baby as far as the company, and very similar to this. So if anybody has played River City Girls games, they like the humor in that, you'd like 13 Demons Dead. Anybody who starts with 13 Demons Dead wants a video game with that kind of silliness, check out River City Girls.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to put all those links in the show notes. But Adam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
this was an absolute
blast.
Having
me.
I'm very angry at you for convincing me to go read Grendel and all of Usagi Yojimbo. Like, I'm supposed to finish Naruto this year. Come on, how dare you do this to me? But no, this has been an absolute blast. I want to thank everybody out there who's listening today. You're fantastic human beings. Thank you to the folks hanging out with us on Discord. Thank you to Brian for proof listening. Thank you again to Adam for being here, and Zach and Kait for hosting with me today. Thank you to Zander, our editor. And until next time, comics are good, and so are you.